Yo, what's up everyone? So we're back in this format for this video. You get to see my face uh, because I'm gonna explain to you the project, okay? And the project is gonna be really cool. It's not gonna be too difficult, but it's going to connect us to what people do in the real world when they study statistics, and that is usually putting it into a spreadsheet, okay? So make sure that when you're watching this video, I'm going to do it and I want you to do it with me. Okay, so don't just watch the video and then go do it on your own. It's better for you to kind of do the entire project while I explain it with you. Okay, so I'm going to split this up into 4 sections, and don't move on to section 2 of the video until you've actually done section 1 of the project. Okay, but let me just show you what we're building towards. This is what your project's going to look like. And this kind of highlights all the cool stuff that you can do with Google Sheets. The way that this starts, and this should be familiar to you, is that in the real world, if you work in a business or anything and you want to input data, and you want to input data, the way that you're going to input data usually is on a spreadsheet. Okay, so the components of this project are you're going to find data that interests you about a population. So I'm studying states, and then you're going to find 2 pieces of information or 2 data about that group. Okay, but before we do that, let's just start with creating your project. And to do your project, you're going to do the whole thing in Excel or Google Sheets. So you're going to go to sheets.google.com. And Google Sheets is just like another part of the Google suite. Okay, so we do Google Docs, Google Classroom, Google Forms, Google Polls, whatever, all that stuff. Google Sheets is another one of them. Okay, so when you're doing this, you're going to look just like you were making like a form or a Google Doc. You're going to make a new spreadsheet, and this spreadsheet is going to be your project. And just for the people who are so on top of my systems, you're going to put this in your folder. Okay, so once you make this spreadsheet, you're going to look to see if you can move it to your folder. And I'm sorry about the time. Like sometimes if I'm screen recording like I am now, everything works extremely slowly, but that's fine. Okay, so you're in your sheet, and the way that you navigate a sheet is every one of these little boxes is called a cell, and you can put a number or word in that just by pressing it. So if I'm in this first cell, I can press the number 3 and enter, and then 3 is my first number in the sheet. So you can compile any data set on Google Sheets by just listing it out, right? So if I wanted to do like a data set I was going to do in class, I could just go down and list my whole data set. Okay, so what you're going to try to do is you're going to try to find a real data set online. So the first step of this is to talk and learn about how you can compile research from online. Okay, so you have a variety of things that you can research, and I'm really going to encourage you to tie it into something you're interested in. Okay, so I'm going to do political examples for my project, and political examples are really cool because we know there's a lot of data, horrible data, good data that you can study with policy and politics. But another really good one is sports. Okay, so if you're a sporty person at all, finding sports statistics is really useful, and I'm going to give you a whole list of stuff, of ideas. Okay, but your first step is just compile some data that you find interesting. So to do that, you need like a population you're studying. Okay, so if I'm interested in, the next election, something I might want to study is voter turnout, meaning what % of people are voting. And a way that you break that up is by state. Okay, so if I'm doing my project, my first row is going to be who I'm studying. And you can do bold stuff like that. And I can list all of my states in order here. And then I can put their data in the next 2 rows. So we can say the voter turnout is the statistic that I'm trying to find. Now let's talk about finding data, because that sounds kind of daunting, but it's really easy. Once you know what you're studying, all you have to do is Google it pretty much. And, the idea of credible versus non-credible sources, like, I'm not that concerned when we're mostly doing the math. In my opinion, like, even like Wikipedia is a pretty valid source to finding data. So all you have to do is think about what you're studying and then Google it and hopefully find good stuff. So I'm going to Google voter turnout by state. And this is something I already did, so I know which links I'm going to look at. But when you do it, explicit results. But when you do it, you're not always going to find the best stuff first. Okay, so I looked this up and I'm just going to click on my first link. And my goal here is to find voter turnout data. So this is kind of likely that you're going to get random websites that look like, I don't want to say adult, that doesn't sound right, but that don't look like they're interesting as much as they're like have a lot of information. Okay, I keep having to pause because it takes a lot of energy for the computer, so it keeps messing up. But anyway, so I'm trying to find voter turnout rates, and I'm going to choose 2016, the last presidential year. So I'm just going to click on this and see if it has what I want. And good. This is what I wanted you guys to see. Let me, honestly just get rid of most of myself. But a lot of times when you're trying to compile data, you're going to find it in a spreadsheet that's not your own spreadsheet. And you're going to have to input it into your spreadsheet. Okay, so I wanted to show you this because this is what we wanted. This total ballots counted is the correct data. This is saying 59% of people in Alabama voted, 61% in Alaska. So this is the right data, and it has all of my states. I just need to figure out how to put it in my sheet. Okay, so let me tell you that the best strategy is usually going to be to copy and paste the entire thing and then delete what you don't need. Okay? So again, I'm going to copy and paste this entire spreadsheet, which has a lot of data. It has multiple different not statistics, but things it's talking about. But all of them aren't useful. Let's just see what happens if I do paste. It's going to load for a while. And again, right now, okay, excellent. So it gave me all of this, and I know from before that it actually took out the first row, which is Alabama, and that's fine. So we'll have to, there it is. But we have all this information, and we have to get rid of a lot of it. Okay, so I think that can always be confusing. Like, that's tricky, but you're gonna have to play around with this until you get what you want. We want our data in the first row and the second row, so I'm going to have to just take this entire row and put it here. So watch me fool around with it, but that's kind of the first lesson for compiling data. You're gonna find it, but then you're gonna have to put it in your first 2 and 3 rows. Okay, so I got my data in my first 2 rows, which makes me very happy. And now I'm just going to delete everything else, okay? Okay, so after messing around with it a little bit, I got my data in a good and presentable way. So part of, working with Google Sheets is going to be messing around with the formatting to make it appealing and all of that, okay? Because a lot of it can be really frustrating. But, I think it's a worthy struggle. So I have my states, and I have the percent of people now in decimal form that voted in each state, okay? And for this project, you're going to compile You're going to compile 2 data sets about the same group, okay? So if I'm studying states in the first one, and states are a really good population to study for politics and a lot of things, I'm going to find a second piece of information about states. And if I'm going to maintain my theme here, which is politics and elections, if I started with voter turnout in 2016, I can also talk about the. I could talk about how people voted. So my second statistic is going to be the percent that voted Democrat in the 2016 election. So again, I'm trying to have two sets of data. My first set of data was what percent of people voted per state, and then I want to figure out how liberal every state is. Okay, and that first one we got lucky that we could copy and paste a sheet, but the second one, I want to show you, like, you always just Google what you want, and we want to talk about the 2016 presidential election results. But actually, yeah, wait, no, I found New York Times last time, and that was really useful. So when I went to New York Times, it told me the percentages for each state and how they voted. But this is not going to be easy to copy and paste. So sometimes you have to just copy and paste. Okay, so this is the correct data I found on Wikipedia. But if this is saying that 34% of people in Alabama voted for Hillary, so if I wanted to just plug it into my thing, I'm going to write 0.341. Okay, so shoot for around 30 data points. 50 is a lot because it's going to take me a long time to get through this whole thing. But you're going to fill this out for both of your things. Okay, so I have my data in, and that part I'm hoping is the easiest part of this, because the next part can be tricky but is really awesome. So what's the whole point of putting all my data in a spreadsheet, right? So I have my data, but that hasn't really been beneficial in any way yet, okay? But what's really cool about spreadsheets, why we're going to do this, is the function tool and its ability to calculate statistics. So I'm going to start by making a new section of my sheet called voter turnout. And you should only be watching this if you already have your data. Okay, so make sure you paused it if you haven't. So we're going to try to figure out how I can find these statistics using just sheets and not a calculator. So good. Let's say I wanted to find the median and the mean. Now, before I show you this is really, really amazing, and it's important you're focused. Whenever you press equals in a spreadsheet, it's going to do math for you. So first, let's just say I want to know what 5 plus 5 was. If I press equals 5 plus 5, it's going to solve it. If you just press 5 plus 5, it's going to put 5 plus 5 in your, what do you want to call it, your box, okay? But if you press equal, it's going to do calculations for you. You can take two boxes and add them up. So equal, and I can press that button, then press the plus sign, and then press that button, and it's adding those two data points up, okay? So think that this has calculator capabilities, and you can solve math with it. So what's going to be even better is if you start typing in words, it's going to have a bunch of different calculator functions. So let's say we wanted to find the median. I just have to press equals median. It starts a parenthesis, and I'm just going to highlight my data. This tells you the rows it's in. So it says B2, and it's okay, there's some blanks in my data, to B52. And if I press enter, it just solved me the median. Okay, so that's like the moment of the entire project, but you can do that for every single statistic. You can press equals, search it up, and there's some that are harder than others, and we're going to talk about all of them, and you highlight your data set, and it's going to solve it for you, okay? So let's just go through them. If you look at my projects example, we're going to do mean, and all the spread statistics now. So mean is harder, only because you can't find the mean by pressing mean. You're going to have to do it by doing average. So average all my data, enter, and it solves it. So the average state had 61% of people voting. Let's do min and max, and then Q1 and Q3. Now min and max, you could just look through your data set, but sometimes you have a big data set, and you can't immediately see what the smallest or the largest data point is. So we're gonna do min and we're gonna do max. So let me just do those two, and then we're gonna go to Q1 and Q3. Okay, so we found the min and the max, and quartiles are going to be some of the first ones that are difficult. And I want to tell you what to do if you're struggling. So let's say I wanted to find my quartile. It says quartile, but it doesn't say which one to do. If I ever want to figure out how to use a function on here, all I have to do is Google it, okay? So they're called functions on Google Sheets. So I'm going to write quartile function Google Sheets. And I find these really useful if you're stuck. And it's just going to be the Google support, and it's going to tell you how to use the quartile function. Okay? So if you ever are stuck with a statistic, how to solve something, look it up, because it's going to tell you how to put it in. So these are the cells. So it's saying to put your data in and then the quartile number. So if I want to find quartile 1, what that told me is I put my data in, then comma, which quartile I want. So if I wanted to do quartile 3, it's actually the same data, so you are allowed to just type it in there. And then this one is quartile 3. So that would give me quartile 3. For range and IQR, like let's just use our skills here. We know it's going to be max minus min. So it's going to be max minus min. And then IQR, crap, is Q3 minus Q1. Finally, for standard deviation and variance, it's not going to find standard deviation if you look up standard deviation, but it will find variance. So let's do variance and then take the square root. And my example, you're going to be able to see what functions I use. And, you know, if you ever get stuck, you could just use your calculator. But the point of this project is to try to use the function stuff because it's really cool. So if we know that this is the variance, the square root of that is the standard deviation. I'm going a little fast through that because you will be able to figure all of this out on your own. And with my example, if you're ever stuck, okay? But hopefully everyone thinks that's really cool. That's component 1. And then component 2 of our statistics is we're going to try to create a frequency chart. Now, I found a shortcut for this using frequency. And if you want to do that, figure it out on your own because I think it's really hard for everyone. But again, if we're trying to find a frequency chart, all that means is we're going to have some bars, and then we're going to find their frequency, their relative frequency, and their cumulative frequency. So let me put all of that in, and we'll talk about how we can do some shortcuts. Okay, so these are my intervals, and all I'm going to do is literally count through my data to figure out the frequencies. Okay, so I'm still gonna pause the video and find my frequencies, and then once I have my frequencies, we're gonna look for some shortcuts for relative and cumulative. Okay. So now that I have my frequency, we know that relative frequency is just this number divided by total. So I can do this divided by that and keep going. So this divided by that for each of them. And when you do it on your own, I acknowledge it's going to take way longer, and that's okay. That's by design, just because you're not used to the system. And then for cumulative, remember that cumulative is just adding up all of them that have happened before. Yeah, I did it wrong. Yeah, so okay, wait. So all you have to do for cumulative frequency is add them all up. So this plus this plus this plus this plus this plus this plus this. Okay, so that's our frequency chart, and this doesn't matter, but you can make things pretty in Google Sheets, and I wanted to show you that. And that's through formatting. So one way that you can format always is by using the borders. So I think, this looks a little bit more legit if you put a line around it, and you can change the colors of that. And then maybe each row could have its own border. So you can be aesthetic here, and that's probably good to kind of get used to the things that you can add to your sheet. So I think maybe the titles, it's good to put in their own box. The totals, it's good to put in their own box. But that already looks a lot better. And just in this quick video, we've already accomplished all of my statistics for voter turnout and a frequency chart. And we have one more part of this. The video is going to be a little longer than I wanted, but I think we'll pause it down to 30 at most. But we're going to find how to make a chart or a histogram. Okay, so you make your statistics, you make your frequency table, and this is part 4 of the video now, which is make your chart. And all you're going to do to start is highlight your data. And you're going to notice this is where I make, if a question is like made by me, this is how I make my charts. I'm going to go to insert and then chart. And there's my chart. Okay, and I'm going to do this. So I'm down here, that's fine. We don't want a scatter chart, that's next unit. We want a histogram. So find histogram. And then it actually is almost done. They already almost made the whole thing for us. But we want to make sure we're really focused on our labels and our title and then our bars. And basically, let me move this way. I want your bars to line up with your frequency chart. Okay? So let's talk about how we're going to edit this, and this is really important. So we have the correct data in, but we want to customize. And the first thing I want to worry about is the intervals on the bottom, which I want to be 0.05. So we're going to go to histogram and bucket size. They use the phrase bucket size, but I'm going to use 0.05. And now it's perfect, right? 1, 0, 4, 13, 15. They line up. But I want to make sure I am titling it all correctly. Voter turnout, U.S. states, 2016, as my title. But then I want to make sure I have correct axes. So the vertical axis is going to be number of states. And the horizontal axis is going to be voter turnout %. And you can mess around with this even more and make this prettier, etc. But that's all I'm going to require you to do. Okay, so you're going to do this for both of your data sets. I did it for voter turnout, but you would also do it for your second one. So you're going to have two of all of this. Um, that's it. I'm going to give you, like, for grad school, I had to make like this little project. I made this project a few years ago, and I give it every year. Um, so I'm going to give you that project, like, exemplar and an example for you to look through. And that's going to be your support. Okay? But I don't think it's going to be too hard. And I hope you watch the video while you did the project. So there are these 4 parts. But that's that. Woo!